Hello, Lana. I hope you are doing well. Welcome to a lesson in history and government, that is in Form 2. We are learning about the social organization, the economic organization, and the political organization of the African societies. In our previous lessons, we started learning about the Baganda kingdom, the socio-political and economic organization of the Ganda. So in the previous lesson, we looked at the social organization of the Baganda, and I mentioned that Kabaka was the center. He was the center of the organization of the society. Everything revolved around the Kabaka, and we said the Kabaka was the king. He was the head of the society. We also said that the society was divided into classes. How many classes did the Baganda kingdom have, my dear Lana, from our last lesson? Very good. It had 4 classes. The highest was the ruling or the royal class, and then after that we had the chiefs, right? And we are going to look at who are these chiefs. And then the third one were the Bakopi, or the peasants. And then the last class, or the lowest class, were the Badu, who are the slaves. We also learned that they had a traditional religion. What was the name of the traditional religion, my dear Lana, of the Baganda? Yes, the Lubale. Very good. That was the traditional religion. And they also believed in the existence of a supernatural God, or a divine power. What was the name of their God? Katonda. Very good. And then they also had other gods and spirits who are worshipped through mediums. We also mentioned that we also learned that they lived, or they practiced, polygamy. That is the activity of having more than one wife, and this was to encourage unity, or to strengthen the social relations among the people. And in that spirit, Kabaka married from each and every clan in the kingdom to make sure that he united, or he had caught the attention, or he had caught the allegiance of each and every clan, because no clan would revolt against the Kabaka having their own daughter married to the Kabaka. So that was a way of bringing the people. We also said they also believed in life after death. And then towards the end, we said there was introduction of Islam, and also the introduction of Christianity. Now, my dear Lana, in our today's lesson, we are going to learn about the political organization. The political organization. A political organization of the Baganda. And remember, we are talking about the 19th century. So, how were they politically organized? When you talk of political, it involves governance, the way authority was disseminated, or the way control was exercised over the people. That is political. You learned that in your Form 1 when you looked at the introduction to history. So when you talk about political organization, is the way of exerting authority on other people. So how are the Baganda people organized in their political system? So the first point that we are going to mention is they had a centralized system of government. They had what, my dear learner? A centralized system of government. When we talk of a when we talk of a centralized system of government, they had a center of power. The centralized system of government, they had an overall leader who took control of every affair of the kingdom. So the centralized system of government was based on, it was headed by, the government was headed by Kabaka. Let me use a different colored pen so that you could get the name correctly. Kabaka, whom in other words we can refer to as the king. Kabaka was the king of the kingdom. He was the king of the kingdom. So Kabaka was the center. He took control of everything. He was the leader, the overall leader. He was the head of the community. So everything was centralized on him. And the Kabaka's position was hereditary. His position was hereditary. He had the position was the Kabaka's position. Kabaka's position was hereditary. What does that mean? Hereditary. The eldest son. In case Kabaka was to vacate the office or was to die, which was the case at then, the only time Kabaka would cease to be the leader is when he has died. So the eldest son, the first son, would take control or would take the reins after the father. So what were the duties of Kabaka? What were the duties of Kabaka? Number one, he was the head of the traditional religion. Everything to do with religion was centered on him, as we learned in our previous lesson, the social organization. He was the nerve center. He was the center of worship. So he was the one who directed. He had to preside over the major religious activities of the community. That is one. He led or he directed. He was the head of every traditional religion. And then number two, he was the final court of appeal. I have to look at that. The duties. Let me use a different color. Duties of Kabaka. Duties of Kabaka. I've mentioned he was the head. He was the head of religion. And then he was the final court of appeal. So, as you lead, or if in case you have a conflict with each other, you would go to the lowest level, who are the chiefs. If you are unable to, or you are not satisfied, the final place you could appeal, or the person who could make the final decision or a final determination, was Kabaka. That's why we refer to him as the final court of appeal. If anybody in the kingdom was unsatisfied in how matters were being ran, he would go to Kabaka, who would make a final determination. If you are not satisfied with what Kabaka said, there would be no any other kind of avenue or where you could have any other place of being solved, or that matter you are having to be solved, because Kabaka made the final determination. The other one was he was the commander of the army. He was the commander in chief, like what we we refer to our country today, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Actually, he was the commander. That should be an A. The commander-in-chief of the army. He would direct, he would lead, right? He would make sure that the armies are well organized. And then he also appointed, transferred, and dismissed chiefs. So the chiefs were appointed by the Kabaka. He had to transfer them, one from one position to the other, or in case they were disloyal, he was the one who dismissed the chiefs. And then he controlled trade. Control of trade. That was the other duty of Kabaka. He controlled the trade. And then he was the trustee. He was the trustee of the land. He was the trustee of the land. So every land in the kingdom of Baganda was owned by Kabaka. That is what means by the trustee. Every land in that kingdom was the property or was owned or it was entrusted to Kabaka. So that means he was the one to apportion land to whomever he pleased. So especially during to the chiefs, those chiefs who were loyal to him were given land to make sure that they were in line. But we are going to mention that in a moment. So these are some of the duties of Kabaka. So apart from who instituted Kabaka, after let's say for example Kabaka, the father has died, who would institute him into the office? So there was another office that was known as the prime ministers or katikiro. Katikiro, who was the prime minister. He was the prime minister. So he was the next most powerful person in the kingdom. He was the next most powerful in the kingdom. He helped or enabled Kabaka in his leading or in his administration. He also gauged the people who are going to visit Kabaka. Before you went to Kabaka, you had to pass through the Katikiro or the prime minister. And then also he organized the army and planned the army's activities. That was the work of the Katikiro, the prime minister. He also educated or dealt with cases, minor cases that did not require the attention of Kabaka. That was his other role. He also planned public works, the works that were supposed to happen in the kingdom. It was the duty or the work of Katikiro, among other duties. So together with Katikiro and the head chief, they instituted or were the ones who made or put the Kabaka, the reigning Kabaka, on his throne, the clan head, who was known as Mugema. So the two, there was another one known as Mugema. So the two, who was the clan head? So these two instituted Kabaka into office, right? So that is their work. So immediately we say, for example, a king has passed on and the son is going to take over the reins. It was the duty of Katikiro, who was the prime minister, and Mugema, the clan head, the head of all the clans, were the ones who would institute the Kabaka into his position. Now, we said that Kabaka, or we have learned that Kabaka was the overall head. So, Kabaka was at the head. Kabaka was at the head, and we have said he was the king. He was the king of the kingdom. That is what Kabaka means. He headed, or he ruled over the whole land. So, after Kabaka, the kingdom was divided into divisions, 10 divisions that were known as the Saza. We can call them counties. Like, for example, in our country, we have one nation, which is Kenya. It is subdivided into how many counties? 47 counties. But now, the kingdom of Uganda, or the Buganda, not Uganda, the Baganda kingdom was divided into Sazas. We could equate that to the counties we have in our land today. We had the Sazas. So, these Sazas were ruled by Saza chiefs. You're saying the whole kingdom, it is, this is the kingdom. We have the kingdom here. And then from the kingdom, we have the Sazas, who are appointed. The Saza chiefs were appointed by Kabaka, right? I want you to get that. Kabaka was the head of every or the whole kingdom, but the kingdom was subdivided into small divisions that were known as Sazas. So the Sazas were ruled by the Saza chiefs. Right? The Saza chiefs were appointed. We said a duty of Kabaka was to appoint the chiefs. He appointed, transferred, and dismissed chiefs. So these Saza chiefs were appointed by Kabaka, and he gave them land. Actually, he would subdivide the land and give them to the chiefs to ensure they were loyal to him. So if a chief was disloyal to the Kabaka, he would be dismissed and his land taken away. So to make sure that the chiefs were in line, Kabaka gave them land. So the Sazas were further subdivided into subdivisions, or what we could call in our current day sub-counties, which were known as Gombololas. Gombolola. Right? Gombolola. I want you to get that. The kingdom was owned by who? Kabaka. Right? And then the kingdom was divided into divisions that were known as the Saza. Right? Now, every Saza had further subdivisions, which were known as the Gombolola. Right? These Gombololas were led by people referred to as Gombolola chiefs. The head were led by the Gombolola chiefs. So these chiefs were under the Saza chief. So for example, we have one Saza. It has its own subdivisions of Gombololas, right? And then now this one, now we go to the lowest political structure that was known as the Muluka. This was the lowest or the smallest. Those were the villages, right? They were led by the Bataka. The Bataka chiefs, right? So that is now the political structure of the Kingdom of Uganda. We had at the highest level, we had the Kabaka. We had the Kabaka at the highest level. And then after him, we had the Saza chiefs. After him, we had the Gombolola chiefs, and then the lowest, who are the Muluka. Now, we ask ourselves, what were the duties of these chiefs? What were the duties of these chiefs? The first one was to maintain law and order in the areas of leadership. And then number two, they were supposed to provide manpower for the army. It was the duty of the chief to make sure that he has provided men, right? And then he was also to try cases or adjudicate cases in the areas. So for example, if we are having a conflict between Gombololas, they would go and solve it with the Saza chief. So if the Mulukas are having a conflict, they have to go and be interrogated by the Gombolola chief. So if we are having issues among the families, they would be handled by the Bataka. So that is the structure. That was the other structure. And then another duty was to collect taxes. The chiefs were also supposed to collect taxes on behalf of Kabaka. Remember, Kabaka was the trustee of every land. So the taxes that had been apportioned to the people, it was the duty of the chiefs to go and get them or collect those taxes. Now, apart from this system, which was the kingdom, the Kabaka, through the works of the army, right, he was able to conquer other states or neighboring communities, right, which became states or part of the kingdom. So these were known as the vassal states, right? So these were states that had been conquered. These were states that had been conquered by Kabaka through his army. So they were led by Batongole. So these were the leaders or the people who ruled these states. But these states had to pay homage, or they had to respect and pay tribute to Kabaka. And then, as we have been mentioning, they had the kingdom had an army. They had a standing army, a very strong army that was involved in protection of the community. They protected the community from external attacks, and also they made raids or conquests. So they would go and attack other communities and expand the boundaries of the kingdom. That was the work of the army. Also, there were different symbols. There were different symbols of unity. The first one was who? Kabaka was the symbol of unity. He was the one who signified the unity of the kingdom. Also, there was the throne where Kabaka sat on. That was a symbol of unity. It was referred to as Namulondo. It was referred to as Namulondo, right? That was the throne. The throne that was sat on by the Kabaka. Apart from these, there were other items. We had spears that were kept at the palace, right? At the palace, these were symbols, just symbols that signified the unity of the kingdom. Now, the last thing that I want us to discuss, apart from Kabaka and having those two, the prime minister, the Mugema, and those chiefs helping him to lead, right? We have talked over the head, who was who. We have the Saza, right? And then we have the Gombolola, we have the Bataka, Katikiro, Mugema. These are people that helped Kabaka to lead the whole kingdom. So apart from them, there were other officials. There were other officials that supported. So let us look at the officials that helped Kabaka in the administration of the kingdom. Let me underline with this. The officials, and actually it was not one, there were several. The officials. So the first one, as we have mentioned, was Katikiro, which we said he was the prime. He was the prime minister, right? We also had the Mugema, or who was the head chief, right? The chief most among those ones. And then we also had another one who was known as Omulamuzi. This was the chief justice. We also had the queen. We had the queen mother. And the queen and the sister. So the eldest sister to the Kabaka and the mother to the Kabaka also were advisors. These were the main advisors of the king. And then we also had the Mufumbiro. This was the chief baker. He was concerned with the affairs of running the palace, how the palace was running. That was the work of the Mufumbiro. Now, apart from these officials, there was another body that included these chiefs, the chiefs and the Kabaka, together with the Katikiro, formed a legislative body. They formed a legislative body that was known as Lukiko. This was the legislative body, right? It was the legislature. They were concerned with making the rules. Or the regulations of the kingdom, and also they advised the Kabaka on running the kingdom, on issues that affected the kingdom, and also they assisted the Kabaka in officiating different disputes. So it was a collection of the chiefs together with Kabaka and the Katikiro. So they would assist in settling of disputes. And then they also directed on collection of taxes. What taxes to impose on the people. They were able to make decisions. And also, now that they are chiefs, right, they brought the desires or the aspirations of the people to Kabaka. And lastly, they helped on the general administration of the kingdom. So they generally helped Kabaka to lead or to partake the kingdom. But one thing I need you to understand, my dear learner, much as the Lukiko was helping or was involved in running the affairs of the kingdom, Kabaka would overrule. The Kabaka would overrule. If they made a decision, Kabaka would overrule or refuse to impose the decision that had been made by Lukiko. They were very important. They were the legislative body. But in case Kabaka disagreed with them, the opinion or the decision of the Kabaka overtook or took precedence. So that is all about the political organization of the Baganda. So as we end our lesson, my dear learner, let me give you a question or some questions that you can attempt. I'm sure now you have learned about the political organization, how the Baganda community was politically organized. So let us look at the questions. The revision questions for our lesson today. Revision questions. Describe the political organization of the Baganda in the 19th century. And then number 2, identify the name of the Prime Minister's office. Right? Remember, this is an office. So how was it referred to among the Baganda? And then what were the duties of Kabaka? And I'm sure, my dear learner, you are able to effectively answer that question because we have discussed it in our lesson today. And with that, I thank you so much for having time to learn with me. And if in case you have any question, you can leave a comment at just after this video. You can ask a question and we shall get back to you. It's bye-bye for now.